Hi, this is Shane Hensley of Pinnacle Entertainment Group, makers of Savage Worlds and Deadlands, and you are listening to Tale of the Manticore.
The following podcast is intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome back to Tale of the Manticore, Season 3. Like the creature from which it takes its name, Tale of the Manticore is a mashup, a crossbreeding between two different species of storytelling. Here you will find the unpredictability of old-school paper and dice games with the storycraft of a dark fantasy novel. No character is sacred, and none will be spared if the dice decide their fate is at hand. According to lore, the tale of a manticore is barbed with cruel iron spikes. There will be much pain in the days ahead. Last time on Tale of the Manticore. In Chapter 29, the companions find the village of Duroth, built into the side of a hill with a number of outbuildings constructed in a basin at its foot. Duroth is unlike any village any of them have ever seen. The place discourages outsiders with a perimeter of staked skeletons. When the party passes this border and lays eyes on the village itself, they can instantly tell that some kind of disaster occurred here. Every building is broken, and there is no sign of life. The companions walk through a scene of desolation as they investigate the village. Eventually, they climb the broken stairs to the lowest cave opening. Next, in a flashback, we learn what happened to Duroth. 7 years before the events of Achilles' quest, the community leader and rector, a man named Bayum, was called to respond to an emergency. One of the Durothi's scouts had returned to their caves from a map-making expedition. The scout's wounds were too deep even for Bayum to heal, and he died. As he did, a calamity outside their cave was heard. Their village was under attack, and when Rector Bayum saw the monster they faced, he called for everyone to retreat into the safety of the hillside. Chapter 30, Part 1. 7 years ago. Rector Bayum took hold of himself. His people needed him.
To the caves!
He called.
Everyone, get to the caves!
The hulking, gigantic beast was in a kind of frenzy, smashing through their log-built structures as though they posed no impediment to it at all. One after another, Durothi villagers and animals were snatched up, sometimes one in each of the monster's hands, and brutally devoured.
Everyone, get to the caves now!
Bayum repeated. He had to fight down a hysterical thrill that threatened to numb his brain. The minute or so it took to get the survivors up the stairs and into the cave seemed to take forever. But finally, every member of their community that was ever going to escape the monster outside had done so. With a prayer to Ahea that he was doing the right thing, Bayum decided that the men and women still crawling around outside, broken and bloodied, could not be saved, and it was with immense misgiving that he ordered the huge wooden cave door to be shut and barred. He could hear those he had left to die calling out in despair and protest as he did so. It broke his heart, but there was no choice.
Light the torches,
he ordered. Someone had already had the idea, and as the heavy bar fell into place, the first torch blazed to life. A moment later, the second did as well, and now the cave was fully lit. Rector Bayum took stock of his people. Ordinarily, the Durothi numbered 70 men, women, and children in total. At any given time, 10 of them would be away on a map-making expedition, serving their greater effort of discovering the location of the Golden Path. Jessen was one of them, and while he was dead, the fate of the other 9 was a mystery. That left 49 souls that should have been with him in the cave now, but at a glance, Bayum could see that there was less than half that number assembled here. Perhaps there were as many as a dozen more, further into the caves. But even then, they must have lost 15, perhaps even 20 lives to the monster. He was in the middle of a quick head count when a tremendous bang shuttered the massive wooden doors of the cave. He and the others flinched away from the sound as a cloud of dust filled the air. Fresh panic seized the rector. The front door of the cave was a double row of strong wood. It must have been 2 feet thick and weighed several hundred pounds. Moreover, it was barred not with a plank, but a log that took 2 strong men to fit into place. Even the gigantic beast outside couldn't possibly. Another shower of dust and dried mud was knocked free, and Bayum could not deny that he had heard the distinct sound of splintering wood.
What are we going to do?
Cried out a terrified voice from the crowd.
Rector Bayum, what should we do?
Go further in. Take the torches and go further in.
But there's no way out. We'll be trapped.
Bahia, they were all going to die if they did not get away from here.
We are already trapped. Go! Go!
Bayum heard the awful sound of the door being ripped from its moorings, and then daylight fell upon him, filling him with horror. He ushered the last villager through the narrow passage into the inner caves ahead of him, and, although he would later wish he had not, he took a look back before he followed. The face peering over the edge of the cave mouth was as big as a prize pumpkin and grotesquely malformed. Worst of all were the black pits where the eyes should have been. They were so deep in their sockets as to be invisible. The face resembled a huge lump of dough that someone had pushed their fingers into. In it, there was a kind of empty stupidity that was even more terrifying in that it communicated the single-minded purpose of an automaton.
This thing will not stop until we are all dead.
Bayum thought as he turned and fled with the terrible giant roaring in frustration at his back. The companions are currently standing in the same room, or more specifically, cave, where Rector Bayum had been when he conducted the members of his village to safety and then escaped himself. As the companions are about to begin exploring further, I'm going to need to figure out exactly what is inside the caves of Duroth. Now, I haven't figured out yet what happened in the caves post-attack, but I am reasonably sure that nothing is alive in there now. It's been established that the caves do not have another exit, so the survivors would either have made a run for it, or else they would have perished. Now that I think of it, this question is central to everything the companions might discover inside, so it's essential that I answer it now. I'm going to roll a d12. D12s don't get enough love. On a 1 to 4, the Durothi will have attempted a mass exodus. A 5 to 8 will indicate that they all died inside the cavern, and a 9 to 12 will indicate a mixed result. Some stayed, while others tried to leave. I'll make the roll now, but I'm going to keep the result a secret. Here we go. Okay, that tells me everything I need to know. Chapter 30. Part 2. Day 28. Early evening. Mythic event meaning. Celebrate possessions. Party status. Achillea, 9 out of 9 hit points. Cord, 18 of 18. Dureni, 12 out of 12. Tentir, 15 out of 15. Fairwind, 18 out of 18. Supplies. The companions have 8 portions of food. Spells available. Achillea can cast Shrink ×2 and Glitter Dust. Cord can cast Entangle and Slow Poison. At the far end of the cavern, just at the point where the light from outside began to dim, a single pinched corridor of smooth natural rock led away into darkness. Fairwind plucked one of the torches from its wall sconce and pulled out his tinderbox. Once he had the torch ablaze, he nodded at the others.
Wait for us outside, Robin,
said Achillea. The little stuffed bird alighted from Cord's shoulder and flew out the cave mouth, while the others prepared to go further in. Achillea suddenly remembered what had happened in the crypt, took the second torch from its sconce and carried it unlit in her free hand.
In case the other one goes out,
she explained. In order that everyone could see well enough, Fairwind took a middle position as they formed up their marching order. Dureni was first, then Tentir. Fairwind and Achillea were next, and Cord brought up the rear. They slipped into the smooth and narrow corridor without talking, and Achillea assessed that the cave's natural bottleneck would make for a very effective defense. She wondered how far the cave system actually went. From the outside, this cave seemed the largest, and the staircase leading to it would seem to support that assumption. Still, places like this could be deceptive from the outside. The narrow passage took them some 15 feet in, remaining relatively level, and curving to the right before it bent almost in a hairpin, doubling back into a second cave. This one was about half the size of the first, heart-shaped, and measuring some 15 by 20 feet. It had a single exit where the narrow passage continued on the opposite side. Durrani pointed at some old furniture draped in cobwebs.
A chair, a bench, and nothing else. This may have been a guard room.
When they had all entered the space and had a chance to look around, Tentir asked for silence so that he might listen down the next passage. The others obliged, and he tried, but eventually gave up.
I can't hear a thing other than dripping water,
He declared.
I suppose that's a good thing.
Come,
Said Durrani.
there's nothing to see here. Let us keep going.
It's funny. Once I made that roll to find out what happened to the Drothi, I figured I'd just go ahead and make up the map of the caverns as I went. But I now realize I can't do that, and for a very important reason. In the last episode, I started a countdown clock. The giant troll that has made a lair of Duroth is off hunting right now, but he'll be back. I determined at random that this would happen in 1 hour and 50 minutes. I'm going to knock that down to 1 hour and a half. By now, the companions must have spent about 20 minutes in the caves. This all means that the size of the cave complex is going to matter a lot, so I do need to determine it at random after all. And since it served me well before, I'm going to once again use the map generator portion of One Shot in the Dark. It's the same system I used in the Kaymore Crypt. Here's a quick refresher on the rules. I use a deck of cards and, using only the hearts, draw until I get the ace. The ace will represent the final or target room. The 2 through King will indicate various other kinds of room, or, sometimes, events. I'll try and stick as close as possible to the description in the game rules. Additionally, I'm going to say that each card pulled will eat up a minimum of 10 minutes. Depending on what's in there, it might be more. This is to account for the PCs going slowly and taking care. After all, they're not aware of any pressing need to move quickly. Okay, let me grab the rule book real quick. Alright, and a pack of cards. Yep, I've got one of those. Removing the hearts and shuffling. Ready. The first card will be a 4 of hearts. What's that? The entry reads, Slender Twisting Tunnel, 1 exit. Well, I think we've already done that. I swear, sometimes these games just seem to know, you know? I'm gonna pick again. This time I've got King of Hearts. What is that? Prison, 1 exit. Okay. I think I know how to make that work. Chapter 30. Part 3. Day 28. Early afternoon. 1 hour and 30 minutes before the giant troll returns. Mythic event meaning. Celebrate possessions. Party status. The party status is unchanged. Achillea followed Tentir and Durrani into the next passage. This one dipped a little, then bent to the left, widening out so that it could have accommodated 2 of the companions walking abreast had they chosen to reorder themselves. They did not, and Fairwind, holding his torch, and then Cord, followed closely behind. After 20 feet, they came to a hollow that opened up on the right wall of the passage, which continued on ahead into the darkness. The hollow was no more than a 10 by 10 foot pocket that hung off the passage where it formed an elbow. In it was another cobweb-covered chair, as well as various tools and implements arranged in an orderly manner atop a natural shelf in the rock wall. The chair was occupied by a slouching skeleton. Its clothes had disintegrated into mere rags, but the rope that bound it by the wrists and ankles was still intact.
What's this?
Asked Tentir, distrustfully.
A prisoner, by the looks of it.
Durrani answered.
See the bindings here and here? These are attached to the legs of the chair, too.
Tentir frowned and prodded the skeleton with the tip of his new sword. Nothing out of the ordinary happened, mostly convincing the young elf that it would not spring to life. Durrani was already looking past it to the tools on the rock shelf. He itemized them in the order they were arranged.
A chisel, a flint and steel, a hammer, a box of nails. I think this space was once used for storage.
he looked up and saw that a faded woven banner had been hung above and running parallel to the shelf. It showed some letters and an image. As Durrani could not read the common tongue of men, he asked Achillea.
What does it say?
Let me see.
She replied.
Fairwind, hold up your torch a bit. It's badly faded, but I can still make it out. It says, yesterday's wisdom, today's discovery. And there's a picture of... What do you make of that, Durrani?
Some kind of stylized owl. Do you think...
A symbol of a Hea. Yes, that would be my guess.
These Dorothi were a pious people then?
It might be a coincidence.
Perhaps.
As there was nothing further of interest in the storage hollow, the decision was made to move on. Still frowning, Tentir eyed the skeleton as they left. Its skull grinned back at him.
That does not look like a good way to die,
he muttered under his breath. Chapter 30, Part 4, 7 years ago.
We can't leave him there forever,
Emzin protested. His cheeks flushed when he was angry. Presently, they were the color of cherries.
That's entirely up to him.
Bayum shot back.
If Torvik can be made to see reason, we'll let him go. Until then, he stays in the chair.
The rector knew that his people were not safe. The troll couldn't possibly reach them inside the caves. It was too big physically to fit into the narrow passage, even if it did manage to climb up and into the cave mouth. But now they had a different problem. Several of them, actually. Since the cave network had only the one exit, they were trapped. There were 31 survivors, including himself, and although they had some stores of supplies, at this time of the year they were not plentiful. Had the attack come in winter, they would have been better equipped. But as it was, they had never expected to be put under siege, and that is effectively what had happened. The attack had begun 16 hours ago, and Bayum had sent someone to the cave mouth to see if the monster was still there every hour. Each scout had come back ashen-faced and nodding gravely. It was waiting for them. Curate Amzin had been indispensable at first, helping him tend to the wounded and restore order and some sense of calm. But after basic discipline had been established, he had become a problem.
Rector, we must get away from here. Take the scroll and flee. If we scatter, most of us will survive. It can't catch everyone.
Bayum had not agreed.
That thinking is premature and unwise.
He had remonstrated.
Let us first see if it goes away on its own.
But with every passing hour, as the reports came back, each one the same, it became clear that the problem was not going to solve itself. His people were tired and scared. No one dared to sleep, though by now it was the middle of the night. They'd had several arguments just recently, and Bayum felt that the Dorothi were divided in a way they had never been before. Until now, he had felt that his command of the village was totally stable, but now it threatened to slip. If he were being honest, it had slipped. If it had not, how would Torvik have managed to secret the scroll on his person and arrange to make a run for it? He must have had the help of others. Very likely Amzin was one of those involved. But he named no names, and no one had stepped forward to challenge him directly when they caught Torvik and bound him to a chair. By a Hea, Torvik had almost succeeded. Bayum drew a hand down his face. He was so exhausted, he could barely stand.
He stays in the chair until I say otherwise. That's my final word on it. Now, Amzin, I wish to have some private counsel with you in the map room.
The other members of the Dorothi were told to go to the common room and try to get some sleep. Bayum held back a selected 6 of his most loyal men and women. These were the ones who had caught Torvik before the man had the chance to get out. To them, he entrusted the future of the community with the following instructions.
Nobody leaves. I will keep the scroll on my person in case someone else gets the idea to go rogue. Be vigilant, sleep in shifts, guard the way out. I need to draw a new card before I let the story move forward. So far, I've drawn 2. Per one-shot in the dark rules, I need a minimum of 6 before I can reach the final room, which I'm starting to think will be the map room. Okay, the next card is... well, it's the king's better half, and looking up the queen gives me Shrieker Mushroom Cave, 1 exit. Then there's some text about saving to avoid attracting a monster. Well, I'm not going to use Shriekers here, mostly because I used them in Season 1. But I can take the spirit of this encounter and make something similar in theme and loaded with a potential risk.
Hang on while I look something up. Okay, I found something suitable. Chapter 30, Part 5, Day 28, Afternoon. 1 hour and 20 minutes before the giant troll returns. Mythic event meaning: celebrate possessions. Party status. The party status is unchanged. The tunnel beyond the elbow curve continued straight for another 30 minutes before dipping sharply. Where it did, someone, presumably the Dorothy, had cut steps into the natural rock floor to make passage easier. Even before the companions reached these rough cut steps, they could hear the sound of dripping water coming much more loudly from ahead. They could also smell something musty. At first, the odor resembled mildew, but as it grew more pungent, it also became tinged with some other notes that were hard to identify. It wasn't exactly unpleasant, but it did make the companions wrinkle their noses and wonder about its source. After they descended the steps and passed through another tunnel that bent to the right, they came to a fairly large space, and the cause of the smell became apparent. The floor inside was strewn with furry yellow-orange humps, each one measuring from 3 to 6 feet long. They might have passed for sleeping animals or giant fuzzy caterpillars, except that they did not move at all, and apart from the sound of water dripping off the tips of the stalactites overhead, the cavern was completely silent. The single darkened passage provided an exit on the far side, but to reach it, Achillea could see that they would have to pick their way carefully through the weird mounds, and the cavern was not small. It was a good 50 or 60 feet across. When Fairwind entered, he made a sound of curiosity and moved forward to get a closer look. Doreni grabbed him roughly by the wrist and then hissed at Achillea.
Tell him to keep his torch well away from the mounds. No one must touch them.
Achillea communicated as much to the startled cleric, and Fairwind withdrew, rubbing his wrist self-consciously.
Doreni, you know what these are?
Haladi Kuf,
came his reply in Elvish.
I'm not familiar with that.
Achillea replied.
It is a kind of mold. Its spores are highly poisonous, very highly. But we are safe unless we disturb it.
Achillea once again looked across the room and apprehended how difficult it would be, and slowly they would have to move in order to accomplish a crossing. Tender might have been wondering the same thing. Judging by the look on his face, his zest for adventure had leaked out.
I'm beginning to wonder if we are really going to find your Odok Zygog here.
Achillea was thinking the same thing, and if it weren't for the woven banner they had found earlier, she might have decided to turn back. But it had mentioned history, and that seemed too big of a coincidence.
I have to know for sure.
Tender pointed at the closest yellow-orange mound of fur. There was the shape of a human foot bone, just visible at one end. He pointed to the other side and saw, through a gap in the fungus, the top of a spine leading into the base of a skull, mostly buried under the thick fuzz. The mold was growing on corpses, and there had to be at least 24 of them in here.
If he is here, he might be dead.
Achillea swallowed hard.
I need to know that too. Come on, we can make it. Let's just be very, very careful not to touch anything.
Here's what I found as a Shrieker substitute in the first edition monster manual. Yellow mold. Any creature which touches this mold is attacked by its enzymes. It also affects wood, albeit more slowly. It does no harm to metals or stone. If the substance is contacted roughly, there is a 50% chance per contact that the colony will release spores. These deadly spores shoot out in an asphyxiating cloud originating from the center of the impact. Any creature which is within this cloud will die, its lungs filled with yellow mold growth, unless it makes a saving throw versus poison. Given the presence of cord, it's interesting that it specifically says it affects wood, right? Anyways, to mimic the not guaranteed but potential hazard described in One Shot in the Dark, off mic, I rolled high-low to see if this mold would block the path, making disturbing it necessary to continue. If it was, a second 50-50 roll would be required to see if it released its spores. But I got a 2, indicating that there would be a possible path through if the PCs were careful. Still, I think these moldy mounds will have to at least delay the PCs. Here's a second high-low to see if it will slow them by an additional 10 or 20 minutes. High will mean 20. I got a 9. Lucky yet again. it will delay them by only an additional 10 minutes. Chapter 30, Part 6, 7 years ago. The map room was one of very few rooms in the caves of Duroth that had a door. While always kept closed, it had no lock because it was not built for security. The map room was where all important councils were held, where all plans were made. Noise traveled through the caverns easily, and so this door was there to dampen sound. It was more for the comfort of the Durothi villagers than for the privacy of their leaders. It was a smallish room of about some 20 feet by 20 feet, more or less square. It featured a large tabletop, atop which rested the Durothi's map in progress, an accumulation of 7 years' effort in the wilderness. 3 corners of the large vellum sheet were held down by fist-sized stones, the fourth a tin lantern. There were no chairs in the map room. This was not a place for rest nor comfort, but for serious work and serious conversations. Currently, Rector Bayum and Curate Amzin were in the middle of the latter activity.
I'll be frank, Bayum. I don't think you have what it takes to lead us through this situation, and if you are in charge, we will all die.
Amzin was looking the rector straight in the eye. It was unnerving.
And I suppose that you would name yourself as leader in my stead,
came Bayum's reply through gritted teeth.
You lack resolve.
No, Amzin, you lack faith. Aheo will test us, but never would she forsake us.
Don't throw that garbage at me,
Amzin sneered back.
My faith is as strong as anyone else's, but I'm not a fool.
Bayum had never seen this aggressive side of the curate. Self-doubt threatened, but this was no time to falter.
I am the elected leader of the Durothi, not you, and I say we wait the creature out.
Amzin shook his head.
That thing outside can't catch all of us. We must take the scroll and flee. If we don't, the scroll might never be found again by anyone.
Bayum couldn't understand how the curate failed to acknowledge the obvious flaw in his reasoning.
But what if it does catch the one of us carrying the scroll, Amzin? What then?
He was holding the scroll and presently held it up to shake it in the curate's face.
This is the first scroll of Gallandau. Will you risk it to mere chance? Think, man.
The curate shot back such a look of venom that Bayum wondered if he might attack him. But of course, they were men of the cloth. In the end, reasonable, pious, and good. They would settle this argument with words and will, as they had solved every problem they had ever faced. Rector Bayum had only just finished the thought when Amzin lunged at him.
Yeah!
Thank you for listening to Tale of the Manticore. If you'd like to help to support the show, there are lots of ways to do that. You can recommend it online or to friends. You can like and repost episode announcements on social media. You can pick up one of my products on DriveThruRPG. And finally, you can rate or review the show on your podcatcher of choice. I am ever grateful for your support. At this point, I'd like to share a listener review. This one was left by Bearded Green Wonder on Apple Podcasts. Bearded Green Wonder writes, "Really enjoying this podcast. This is basic D&D as I remember it. Characters struggling at level 1. Only 12 episodes in and thoroughly enjoying the evolving adventure. Get those goblins." It's been a while, but if I remember Captain Tor and Umura even vaguely, those goblins won't stand a chance. Thanks so much for your kind review. Now, I'd be nowhere without my glorious cast of actors, and this episode features a whole bunch of them. In order of appearance, they are: playing Rector Bayum once again is John Meerdink, host of the Blue 58 podcast about the Green Bay Packers. John is also one half of the Arcane Discoveries Instagram page. Frightened Durothi Villager number 1 is voiced by Simon Williams of the Legend of the Bones podcast. Frightened Durothi Villager number 2 is played by Jared, creator of the Queen of Shadows podcast from Roll, Ponder, and Play. Dot from Bite-Sized Tales and Resting Glitchface is here too, in the role of Orlean. Kyellen, as always, plays Dureni, and Kevin Berenger gives life to Tentir. Finally, taking on the role of Curate Amzin, it's Rob DeVille, paladin of podcasts on side quests, and mastermind of Epic Table Games. In addition to voice actors, this episode features the incredible sound design work of Robert Newman. Robert created the giant troll, and boy did he get it just right. Check out his other work at robertnewmansound.com. The adventure will continue on the next episode of Tale of the Manticore. It's the story where chaos rolls.